As-Salaam Alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Rise Magazine podcast, audible and visual representation of the Rise Magazine, that bad magazine, smashing records all over the planet Earth. My bad, we mean bad in a good way. This is Rise Magazine podcast, and as always, we are going to open up as we start everything that we do in prayer. So at this time, please assume whatever position of prayer you find most comfortable, and we pray. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master of this day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we worship, and thine aid do we seek. O Allah, guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath has been brought down, nor those who go astray. Ameen. All praise is due to Allah. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you all, beautiful audience, listeners, guests, in the greeting words of peace of As-Salaam Alaikum, which means peace be unto you. My name is Brother Hashim. I'll be helping to moderate this wonderful discussion we are going to be having today on the Rise Magazine podcast with an absolutely wonderful guest, one of the best in media. Many of you know her. I'm sure many of you are fans of hers, Sister Vicki. I'm not going to go too far into it because she's going to allow her to say some things about herself, and Sister Aziz, I'm sure, will say some things about her. But we are here today with an absolutely wonderful program set out talking about Black media. So before I go any further or say any more than I should, I want to bring up our wonderful editor-in-chief of Rise Magazine, appointed by the man himself, Student Regional Minister Abdul Sharrieff Muhammad. We have our fantastic editor-in-chief, Sister Aziza Muhammad. So at this time, I turn it over to you, ma'am.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you, Brother Hashim. Firstly, I'll begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And I'd like to greet all of our viewers who are watching in the greeting words of peace of As-Salaam Alaikum. And so, as Hashim had mentioned, we have a special guest today. We're really excited to bring her on, Sister Vicki Dillard. We have named her in the first issue of Rise Magazine, the new queen of Black media. And so she'll be sharing some really interesting topics with us today. You see on the screen, that's her social media. She has a great following and a lot of great tips that she shares and perspectives. And inshallah, we'll be hearing more from her. Before going into that, we just wanted to talk about, of course, since Hashim has mentioned that the Rise Magazine podcast is an extension of Rise Magazine. And so you see, I'm holding the copyright here. You can visit our website at www.risemagazineco.com. Once again, that's www.risemagazineco.com. You can see it on the screen. And there you can find all updates of Rise Magazine, social media. You can get connected to any information that you need to know about the magazine. I want to thank Student Regional Minister Abdul Sharrieff Muhammad, who is the head and founder of Rise Magazine, for allowing myself and the Rise Magazine team, as well as the podcast team, to come together and show forth our talents and, really have a platform where we can come on and share information. And so before I go on, another thing I want to mention is Rise Magazine is all over. We have within the United States, we have various people who buy the magazine. We're also in Canada. And so as far as overseas in the continent of Africa, we are in Nigeria and Rwanda, which is in East Africa. For the Caribbean, we are in Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Guyana, St. Vincent, and Antigua. For the continent of Europe, we're in Paris, France, and the United Kingdom. And for the continent of Asia, we're in Saudi Arabia. So by Allah's grace, we're getting a lot of publicity, a lot of exposure in different places by Allah's grace. And so now, to welcome our guest and her brief introduction, I'm going to read her bio. And so I'm going to go on her website, which is www.onpurposewithvicky.com. And it has here, being formerly incarcerated, activist, inspirational speaker, singer, Vicki seeks to engage the world via relevant information and divine inspiration to form a more just society. On Purpose Global Agency was founded by Vicki years ago, seeking to serve the incarcerated, elderly, the hungry, the voiceless, and the powerless. While she has a heart for the nations and all people, Vicki and On Purpose have a special emphasis in assisting the Black people who are considered the least of these by the world's view. On Purpose is dedicated to informing and inspiring people to live on purpose with divine strategic intention, thus experiencing fulfillment, passion, and overall success in their lives. We understand that once personal success is realized, no doubt their community, then ultimately the world, is dramatically impacted. On Purpose uses its broadcasting network via radio and social media, literature, seminars, teachings, and lectures to accomplish its ends of informing and inspiring. Vicki is host of The Vicki Show, which airs on numerous platforms, including FlyNubianQueenTV.com, YourBlackWorldTV.com, and African Diaspora News Channel on YouTube. These networks, along with our affiliates, make her project reach over 2 million. And so, for all of our viewers, without further ado, we'd like to welcome our guest on tonight's podcast, Sister Vicki X. Dillard. As-Salaam, Sister Vicki.
Alaikum salam. Did you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for the privilege of being with you today. So excited.
Praise be to Allah. And so, Sister Vicki, if you can just briefly, I know we gave your introduction, but just describe your journey, how you came to start with Black media. If you can just give us a little overview of your journey.
Wow. Well, thank you so very much. First of all, I'll say that since I was a young child, I knew that media would be a part of my life. The Vicki Show has literally existed since really before I was 11 years old. When I was 11 years old, I think it was about in the 6th grade, and I entered a contest, and the name of I entered my show, and it was called The Vicki Show. And I interviewed my grandfather at the time. He was a very powerful man, multi-talented, and my hero. And so I interviewed him at my church in Mississippi, New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church. And the pastor of the church my mother talked to him and says, can you videotape my baby? She wants to enter a contest in school. So the pastor of the church, Reverend Eddie B. Cry, the late Reverend Eddie B. Cry, filmed the show. And I won honorable mention and a trip to the museum and subway for the interview. And so there was a supernatural encounter I also had when I was a young woman, a young girl, I should say, where it was made clear to me that I would have a voice to some of the masses, because that's my unique assignment. So I say all that to say, to some degree, whether folks believe in this or not, for me, it sort of was a predetermined, sort of fated situation. I have certainly had a tumultuous and intensive journey over these past 43 years of my life, to include multiple civil challenges in court with high-level officials and Wall Street entities, several judges, both on the federal, state level, and other entities on local levels as well. My activism ended up making me a target in an unjust federal case for which I went through an unjust sentence, an unjust trial, unjust sentence. And I was not successful in some of my appeals. So I ended up doing a total of about 4.5 years in some form of federal incarceration. Most of that time was in Texas. I was born and raised in Mississippi. I now live in Colorado. So it's been so much more. Certainly deaths in the family, loss of all my properties and relationships and foreclosures and bankruptcy, name it. You can imagine I went through it. But during those difficult times, I tapped into my invisible government that I was connected to, and realized that my time had come through the dark night of the soul in that particular circumstance. But over the years and through different circumstances and situations, I've come to know and understand that this journey was not just about me individually. It was actually about the people that I am meant to impact. And so that, in a nutshell, is a little sneak peek into sort of my media purpose.
Praise be to Allah. Thanks so much for sharing. Now we're going to get into question and answers. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question. And just by reading your bio, it has here that On Purpose is dedicated to informing and inspiring people to live on purpose with divine strategic intention. So can you talk a little bit about how you came about starting the program and your journey throughout, what you've noticed, and the importance of getting the word out via Black media and spreading truth?
Absolutely. Well, to be sure, media is warfare. Media is warfare, and we are in a time of war. And we get confused because the battlefield doesn't look like the images they show us of Afghanistan. Our war, our battlefield has playgrounds and schools and parks and recreation here in these United States of America, the hells of North America. And in this war, there are many weapons. And what we've come to know is that our open enemy of at least 467 years, most intensely, weaponizes everything: our air, our food, our relationships, our religion. They weaponize our education, our books, and media is one of those things. And this particular dimension, media, is deeply spiritual. When we look at the word media, we understand it's the plural for the word medium. And we understand also that the word medium is often used in spiritual connotations as that individual that is a channel between the worlds. And so those that are in media are very powerful. Two of the top areas, in my opinion, that has the greatest influence on people is education and media, because you have access to minds, you see. And so when you have access to minds, you can shape those minds, you shape beliefs, and ultimately what those individuals do. So Black media, who has been the number one enemy of America, our voices, no doubt, have been intentionally suppressed. And so when we begin to rise up and to speak for ourselves and to be a voice for the voiceless, we tend to really be on the front line, you see. And we serve as a counter voice and the counter culture to our open enemy. But for my particular assignment, I'll say this. My goal is not to just harp on and beat the drum of white supremacy and the difficulty of our people, which certainly my commentary includes that. But I have to marry both the spiritual and metaphysical. I have to marry both the natural and supernatural, because we are more than what meets the eye. And it cannot just be one thing for us as a people. We're the original people, of course. So, of course, our medicine is different. And the way in which we shape and impact and influence minds, in my opinion, must include both of those particular aspects. So that's what I try to do in the way I do my broadcasting. And so ultimately, it's about informing the people, empowering our people, giving power, I should say. I like to say that more than empower. And inspiring them because that suggests that there's a fire, there's something from the inside out. And that's my goal, is to access that spiritual element in them, so that they're able to do for self.
Praise you, Till. I love it. Thank you, Sister Vicki. Okay, Brother Hashim, if you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Yes, Brother Hashim.
And also, I gotta say, Colorado in the house. Sister Vicki, you told me you live in Colorado. That's my birthplace. So,
okay.
yes, ma'am. Yes.
Awesome.
So Colorado, rep Colorado represent. But
yes, sir.
One of my questions, you mentioned about the struggles and the different attacks that you've had to endure trying to do the right thing and put out the right information. So, speak a little bit on why you think, or for the audience, why you think the enemy does that, why they attack Black people whenever we start to feed our own information to our own people, why they're so adamant on stopping us, why they're so adamant on attacking us. And also, if you have any words of consolation or advice for individuals that are trying to do the same thing but are constantly being attacked, any words of encouragement as well. So give it over to you.
Beautiful. Well, it's about influence. If, as we know through the scriptures, it says that the devil is a liar. Yes. And our books are replete with these lies. We're conditioned and programmed to think less of ourselves. We understand we've been made also other than ourselves. Having someone that serves as a counter voice to, number one, expose the lies and then turn around and empower and tell you who you really are, that's a threat.
That's right.
That's a threat. And so such voices are attacked. They want to silence such voices. And of course, we see that through what's been happening with the global plague that's been going on. We saw the intensity of that, just the fact that we even suggested a holistic approach, which I won't even say the word, but the fact that we even suggested a holistic approach. You know, I'm someone that has been overcoming about a 6-year-long serious autoimmune illness that was related to one of my organs. And I found that through the process of this, it was always celebrated and in fact encouraged to get a secondary opinion, a tertiary opinion, to talk about holistic and alternative approaches. But this particular thing was, you know, if you thought about other more holistic way to address this particular issue, you know, you came up against a lot of resistance. And so we're finding that that's problematic. And so I had a newspaper, you know, attack me on the having such discussions, even though I don't even talk about the specific names like I did early on when it first came out. But just the idea that I was drawing questions to even issues that were peripheral to the main issue seemed to be a problem, you see, for them. So if the devil is a liar, and the devil is, when I'm talking about devil, I'm talking about the opposer. When I'm using that phrase, that word, it's a youth epithet, we will say, to a people in the way in which this particular people operates. So I'm saying to you that just the idea that there's an alternative is very dangerous, because you just might bump into and find out who you really are. That's dangerous. So when those individuals control the narrative, the mainstream white conglomerates that have access to the masses, watching the Vicki show at the time from a previous borrowed laptop before I leveled up and got my little MacBook. My little supporters was like, could you please get another device so we can see you better? Girl, you look terrible. And so using a laptop and a cell phone, watch this, is scandalous to our open enemy, because they never believed that a little nobody sitting over in the corner somewhere, you see, using alternative forms of media, multimedia, to reach their people would ever have a real impact. But we understand that I've been in some public disputes. Some of y'all may have seen this. But some CNN folks, some MSNBC folks call me. I've been blocked by some high-profile people that I didn't even follow. But why are they worried about a little Vicki over in the corner somewhere? I believe, which is why, where's my gavel? I'm going to say this quickly. For the Vicki show, I used the gavel. And as one of my beautiful supporters, she came up with this phrase, Vicki, the Vicki show is the home of the hand claps and the gavel raps, because I'm often clapping and using the gavel. But what folks don't understand is I had the revelation of a gavel many, many years ago through a spiritual experience. I won't go there. But the gavel is typically a symbol that we associate with white judges, white policymakers, yes, white politicians. And we tend to see this symbol as they're the ones with the authority. So I use this because I want our people to understand that our voice matters, you see. What we say matters, and we're not just controlling the narrative now, baby. We're controlling world events from the ground up, and our seeding is making a difference. So my encouragement to anybody that feels that, number one, they're called to share in this way or similar way or in media, whether through print or speaking in public or multimedia or traditional, whatever, is to understand the power of the seed. You know, even when you use the word broadcasting, right? That's an agrarian term, yes? To broadcast was a word that was used in farming. And so if you're broadcasting something, you're seeding something, you're disseminating something, you understand that you're not doing it for nothing, right? You're seeding it because you understand that once you plant the seed, something is going to happen. Something is going to sprout up. So I believe in the power of my own voice. God is in my mouth, you see. And I've come to know that because of my unique journey and going inward. So the thing that helped to sustain me when I told God that I wanted to give up, and when I asked, how could you allow these things to happen to me because of the goal and the way in which I moved in my life since a child, you see, I understood, and I teach this principle of boxing. I don't really care too much for sports. I see that about 2 or 3 notches below a terrorist attack. It's just not my thing, you see. But the only, sort of sports thing that I was able to really digest without understanding any of the rules was boxing, because I said, well, whoever, has the biggest black eye, who's out of breath, I didn't have to know all the technical, stuff to come to the pretty close conclusion of who's losing and who's winning, you see. So I went, I was with someone, and they wanted me to come to this boxing party many years ago. So we brought all this food. I bought a bunch of food and all this other kind of stuff. And we left the people's house in about 10 minutes because the boxer got a knockout in the first round. Over with. Went to another boxing party, and we were there for a long time. I think they went at least about 10 rounds. And so that taught me something, is that sometimes through our challenges, you may not always get a knockout during the first round, but it does not mean you're going to lose. And I've learned 2 things from the things I have walked through, and that is this, that me going all 10, 12 rounds showed me my own power, and it gave me a glimpse into the weakness of my enemies. That's how I see the powers that shouldn't be, and those that they call Goliath and important and official and the system and the establishment. I want our people to know that there are other forms of power, and we're able to make an impact outside of the system. But you must first know who you are. You must be tapped into that supernatural force, and you must work your magic. When I use the word magic for me, I use interchangeably with the word spirit and energy, and it also means one's personal power. So do not be offended by such words. I want folks to know, always say to yourself what they said was said in the garden by God. There are multiple revelations of throughout scripture. Whenever we read in a particular text, there's not just one inflexible revelation or interpretation of the scriptures, but one we know when Adam and the woman was said to have sinned, it says that the Most High was walking in the cool of the day, and he was looking for them. And when they said, oh, we ran, we were naked, he said, who told you that? I think that's a good question to ask at every turn in our lives, because that helps us to challenge any forms of limitation when we ask who told us that, and to dare break such boundaries and restrictions. That was a long answer, but
a long answer, but a beautiful one. I mean, and I love, just from one little question, you took it and you just took it and it flew with it. So that was actually very beautiful.
Thank you.
Sister Ziza, yes.
Yes, I want to say I'm happy that Gavel made it to Rise Magazine podcast.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. Your word matters. Let me say this really quick about the gavel, really quick. One of the things, again, this is one of the foolish things, they say, who is this lady with the laptop and the bamming the gavel? This speaks to our subconscious. I really want folks to understand that your voice matters. It's not just the folks that have on 2-piece suits that you call your representatives and your senators and your judges. What you say matters. Like I said, there was a supernatural revelation I had. I was actually in like a trance-like state in prayer when I had a divine revelation, and that took place with the power of my words. So words have meant so much to me over the years. So this is why I say that it's the God in my mouth, the divine energy and force and power that's in my mouth that disturbs so many people. So yes, I want folks to understand that. And so one of my supporters came up with the phrase "home with the hand claps and gavel raps," because when I'm feeling the energy a certain way, and I don't even consciously ever think about it, but I end up clapping my hands. And what I found later through numerous testimonies is I've heard from folks who said their mother had dementia and that their mothers came to when I would clap my hands, or some of my supporters that said they have autistic children. And when I clap my hands, they were able to tap into the Vicki show. So it seems like it's a pretty interesting tool, and I'm so honored by it.
Praise be to God. Thank you so much, Sister Vicki.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. And I, for one, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure the audience greatly has enjoyed your passion and your spirit and just everything. I really, really, in all honesty, because I've seen your show before to a degree, but this is my first real interaction and seeing you in action. So you are absolutely amazing. I definitely want to say that, and I'm sure everyone else feels the same and greatly enjoyed this. So all praise to Allah.
Thank you so much. My privilege.
Yes, ma'am. I enjoyed it so very much. So to everyone watching, be sure to support Sister Vicki. Be sure you follow her. Be sure whatever, anything. I don't know if you have any books or anything of that nature. Do you, Sister Vicki? Oh, be sure. I figured. So we should go to her website.
You got it. Just go to my website, onpurposewithvicki.com. I've got a lot of yummy things that I'm rolling out throughout the year of 2022. And want everybody to know I'm going to be doing some weekly commentary on my own channel here soon. I did my first one the other day at VickiDillard.tv. That's VICKI Dillard.tv. So make sure you subscribe there and hit the notification bell. And you can contact me and buy some of my yummy products and stuff. As you just mentioned, my website right there on the screen, onpurposewithvicki.com. Thank you all so much. And big shout out to all of the Beehive and my wonderful supporters. Looks like I'm seeing all kinds of comments. And those who are not officially a part of the Beehive, I'm so privileged and honored that you joined us today, and those that will join us later. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much, Sister Vicki. So with that, before we close out, as always, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful sister, Sister Aziza, for any closing last words, and then we're going to go ahead and close out. So Sister Aziza, I turn it over to you.
Yes, I want to thank Sister Vicki so much for on behalf of us, the podcast team, as well as Student Minister Sharrieff and the Rise Magazine team. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing everything you shared with us. As I mentioned in the beginning, Sister Vicki was in first issue of Rise Magazine. And so if you haven't got it, please you can get it on www.risemagazine.com. The article that she wrote was The New Queen of Black Media, which we gave to her by Allah's grace. So thank you so much, Sister Vicki. And I just want to mention this. You had said the importance of, we spoke about the importance of Black media, about our voices, and that's really what Rise Magazine signifies, us rising up, reaching that point of speaking what needs to be said, saying what needs to be said without being filtered or without being edited, whether it's through an article being written or coming on the podcast and verbally saying it. And that's the whole goal and purpose of Rise Magazine. So I thank everyone so much for tuning in, for joining us. And we're so happy that the gavel made it to Rise Magazine podcast. Thank you, Sister Vicki. And so without further ado, Brother Hashim, I'll turn it back over to you.
And I'll just say this really quick, but since we're on the Rise Magazine, it's so appropriate with the gavel. All rise. Yes?
Yes, I like that.
All praise due to Allah. So thank you, everybody. Be sure to join us back next week, same time, same place, every Wednesday, 5:30. With that, we're going to go ahead and close in prayer. Those of you watching, if you enjoyed, please donate so we can continue to put on this wonderful program for you. That's $Rise Magazine. Again, that's $Rise Magazine. Go to www.risemagazineco.com to get your own personal physical copy of Rise Magazine, and go to www.abdulsharrieff.com to get all of Regional Minister Abdul Sharrieff's books. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close as we open. Prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master of this day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we worship, and thine aid do we seek. O Allah, guide us on the right path. the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors, and not the path upon whom thy wrath has been brought down, nor those who go astray. Amen.